right. Well, welcome everyone to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast. This is episode 125, which just sounds crazy. And I am joined by Tanisha Patel from Opithy Health and Wellness on today's podcast, all the way from the UK, right in the middle of the UK. Tanisha is an accredited health coach specialising in helping women with hypothyroidism in their diet, sleep, stress, exercise, and gut health. So you sound a little bit like me. We kind of do probably fairly similar things, which is great because we need lots of people all around the world helping people with hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, kind of navigating all the thyroid health space. And Tanisha is joining me today we're going to talk a lot about her story and then kind of what led her into wanting to work with other people with thyroid conditions. So welcome, Tanisha, to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Annabelle, for having me on your podcast. It's great to be able to share awareness about our condition and potentially help as many people as we can.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I mean, that's sort of one of the missions, I suppose, of this show is to spread awareness because, just like it is here in Australia, in the UK, and really all around the Western world, it seems from talking to different people, there's still, for something that is so common, there's so little known about it. And yeah, so Tanisha, tell us a bit about you first, and then we'll kind of get into your story. But you live in the UK. Have you lived there your whole life? Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I've lived in the UK my whole life, same
Yep.
city, and I'm quite new to this industry, but I think it's kind of great that the industry is there so that people can find the resources they need. And
Mm-hmm.
I basically was diagnosed in 2016 to 2017, but as you said, we'll discuss my story in a little bit.
Mm.
So
Mm.
about me, I have a science background. So my degree is
Mm.
actually in forensics. So I kind of shifted a, a bit in a big way through a career change,
Mm.
which found my passion through health coaching. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
quite an interesting path that I went on. But
Well,
yeah,
I
that's
can
just
see really how forensics. I mean, maybe we'll come to this, but I imagine that your background in forensics and in science probably help you really dig in and find solutions for yourself and not just give up and do
definitely.
whatever you were
Yeah.
told to do.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
think having the science background really did help me when I was doing my research initially. I think if I
Hmm.
didn't have that, I wouldn't really understand a lot of it, and I would still be listening to doctors, which, as a lot of people know, sometimes they don't give a lot of the advice that's required, which is not
Hmm.
their fault, I guess. I don't think they have those resources themselves. Um, but I think for me, it was really beneficial to have that background.
Hmm. Yeah. So were you working like using that training before you started doing the health coaching?
So with my degree, I didn't really get a job in forensics. It's really hard in the UK to do. It's a very small field. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
competitive field. So I went into a field that's for regulations, which again I think helped me as well with this. So I look at
Mm.
chemical regulations during my 9 to 5 job,
Yep.
and then health coaching is basically my passion.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, it's really interesting how I guess you can use, I mean, I don't come from a scientific background at all. I come from a legal background. And I feel like even though that doesn't sort of sound intuitively like that would help, I think in a way it still has helped me because I think I've gone looking for the research, like looking for the evidence, trying to weigh things up, kind of understanding that there's not necessarily one right way, but there's probably multiple different solutions. And, you know, yeah, so coming from a very different perspective, I feel like those skills have helped me in a different way to, I guess, if you've come from a scientific background, that's going to help you differently. But I guess we all use the different skills and abilities and paths that we've been on, and it adds value, to our own
Yeah,
stories. Yeah. So
100%.
so 2016, 2017. So what's that, about 7 or 8 years ago, 9 years ago. So what made you think something was going wrong? Like what were your first, or, what was alerting you to the fact that something wasn't quite right?
Yeah, so looking back, I think the symptoms were there long before I started realizing that those were symptoms. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's quite common with a lot of us. And I was constantly tired, which my friends were saying that's not normal to feel constantly tired. I was
Mm.
always cold, even during like spring and summer months, which again, really not normal.
Yeah.
And I was basically just drained. Like the tiredness was the big one for me, and
Mm.
even the brain fog. Back
Mm-hmm.
then, I was in college when the symptoms were really affecting me,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
it affected my studies quite a lot. I wasn't able to retain a lot of what I was learning, and it was causing me to not get the grades that I needed to really get into university.
Mm. Mm.
So in the summer period between college and university, I was kind of just sat with some of my family members, and in some ways, I think I am lucky that a lot of the women in my family do deal with this condition. So some of my cousins,
Uh-huh.
and they were like, you
Mm.
should probably go get your iron levels checked and your thyroid levels checked,
Mm-hmm.
because there is a lot of crossover between being anemic and having hypothyroidism with the symptoms. And I even had a crazy monthly cycle. It was not normal.
Yeah.
So I went and got my blood test done, and they found out it was hypothyroidism. And
Mm.
in some ways, I was relieved to know that it was that. But then I was like, okay, this is another challenge now. How on earth am I going to deal with this? And what does it
Mm.
mean? And it was so confusing the first few years when they initially put me on levothyroxine,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't really see symptoms change. So I was going backwards and forwards with the doctors, but they were like, just eat healthy and exercise more. That was all
Yeah.
they would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Tanisha, do you mind me asking how old you were around that time that you were diagnosed?
Yeah. So I think I was 18, 18,
Yeah, okay.
17,
So
but
you'd
yeah.
finished, so is college like school? I'm just trying to work it out in Australian terms. So you hadn't started university yet, but you'd finished school?
Yeah, school was finished.
School was finished. So yeah, so around 18. Yeah, so that's still pretty young, isn't it? Yeah. So how long do you think, like if you look back and you say a number of those symptoms, you look back and you realize they were already there, how far do you think you look back and realize that they were there for? Like how old do you think you were when it was probably first starting?
I think maybe when I was around 12, 13, I could feel some of the
Mm-hmm.
symptoms. Obviously when you
Mm.
hit like your monthly cycle and all the other friends like, oh, mine's is fine. It's not that bad. And you're just there like, can't relate because mine's is really bad. And then you just start getting really
Mm.
tired and
Mm-hmm.
everyone else is not. So you're thinking, what's wrong with me? But at that
Mm-hmm.
age, it's everything's just like all one side view. You're not going to think that it's a condition at that age because you don't really know a lot at that age. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I was thinking it
Yeah,
was
it's
getting worse.
interesting, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I look for me, I think I was about the same age. I actually think puberty was the trigger for me and that maybe that's similar
Yeah,
for you. And yeah, when you're a teenager, everything's changing as a teenage girl, isn't it? You don't know what's normal, what's not normal, you know, you don't, and you don't really have all this history of, well, I felt amazing, and this, of that sort of self-awareness of even as a young adult to know, no, I feel really great, and oh, now I feel exhausted and tired. You just have, I was a kid, and now I'm growing into this sort of teenage, you know, woman, and I don't know what's normal and what's not right, and so yeah, yeah, I can
yeah,
relate. It's tough.
yeah, it was.
And tough to be a teenager experiencing, that, fatigue, tiredness, brain fog, you know, not a good monthly cycle, all of those things that you've just described, to be going through that as a teenager is difficult too. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's just the way that it was back then, and even
Mhm.
back then there wasn't that much awareness on hypothyroidism, I don't think.
Mhm.
And maybe
Yeah.
even for you, when you initially found your symptoms, there just
Mm.
wasn't a lot out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there definitely wasn't. I'm a fair bit older than you. There was not much around at all. There wasn't even the internet. That's how ancient I am. But that's all right. We make it through. It's all good. Tanisha, you also said that it was some of your family, like you'd had some cousins and, I mean, yeah, and we know, these things run in families. There is that sort of genetic predisposition. So, so that was good that they were able to point you down, at least the diagnosis direction. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I
So,
think I was really lucky.
so what about like your mum? Like, have you got and have you got sisters? Like, or is it more extended family?
So it's not through my mum's side, it's actually through my dad's side because
Ah, interesting.
my
Okay.
dad's mum has it. She got diagnosed a couple
Uh-huh.
years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going down a generation because even my cousin sister has it, and then my extended cousin sisters as well, they have the condition.
Okay.
So it's through my dad's side. My mum's side is completely fine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? And of course, men can have hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's as well. So, okay. And so you had family say, go get tested. So you went and got your iron tested and your thyroid levels tested. And then what happened next?
Well, they also found out that I was really, really anemic, which I
Mm-hmm.
kind of did figure. I just thought I wouldn't have hypothyroidism. I thought it was just the anemia, and I thought my cousins were like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just a bit too concerned, but no, they had the right to be concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So the doctors were like, we're gonna get you some blood transfusions because they were quite concerned about the
Wow.
levels.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was around my first year of uni. They allowed me to do the transfusions. And
Mm-hmm.
once I got those done, I felt really great. I felt on cloud nine. I thought, wow, I have energy for the first time in my life.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. So that happened. And then I was still losing a lot of blood through my cycles. So I
Mm-hmm.
kept on going back and forth with the doctors for about 3 years, and 3 to 4
Mm-hmm.
years even, on seeing how we can fix it. And their response was, let's put you on birth control or on, those birth control pills and IUDs and whatnot. So I tried all of those things. None of them worked. And then I realized it's definitely something to do with my hormones, and I need to balance these before things get even worse.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just gained a lot more weight and lost more hair, and my mental health declined doing all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think finding the root cause
Mm.
was then my next step, and that's what led me into doing the research and doing my studies and trying to really help myself.
Mm. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, and I think particularly when I mean, really at any age, but when you're in your early 20s, it's you should have energy and you shouldn't be, having to, be battling with, weight gain and mental health challenges and, terrible monthly cycles and yeah. So when you were first diagnosed, you had the blood transfusions and you were put on levothyroxine back then, was that right?
Yeah.
Okay. But you were just told take your pill and there's nothing else we can do. Yeah. Do you know at that point, had you been tested or diagnosed with Hashimoto's?
No, so in the UK, I don't think they do that unless you go through a private practice. Over
Right.
here, it's more like they just test your T4 and your TSH levels.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's it, and they just diagnose you with hypothyroidism. So I didn't even know Hashimoto's was a thing until I started doing my own research.
Right.
And it
Okay.
was really shocking. I was like, wow, I didn't know this was a thing.
Mm. And so since now you know it is a thing, do you know if it's a thing that you've got? Like, have you gone and been tested for Hashimoto's?
I have not personally gone and done the test for Hashimoto's. I've kind of just tried to figure out if any root causes are affected by that. So is my immune system attacking me? Let's focus on gut health. Let's do an elimination diet.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it wasn't the gluten levels for me, they didn't really make a difference, and even dairy. But I have
Mm-hmm.
switched to no dairy. I drink almond milk now because I was like, let me just be safe. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to do the testing. I just need to find the right practitioner in the UK to go do it.
Yeah. 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 I imagine probably. Well, I know I've talked to a few people from the UK, and I'm sure those tests. I mean, I know those tests are available. I don't know, obviously, know exactly how and finding the right doctor, or whether there's private labs. I know here in Australia there are. You can usually get it through your doctor if you offer to pay, um, or really if you are hypothyroid, then often they will test it, not initially, but you might have to push for it. But there are also private labs that you can go through if you really can't get it through your doctor, if they're being too difficult. Then you can get it done privately. So I wonder if it's the same in the UK. But yeah, I guess I have, I do think maybe that is worth something doing. That's certainly
Yeah.
something, because then you know whether you do have that autoimmune component, and which you're probably already addressing anyway, but at least then you know one
Yeah,
way, one way or the other. Okay.
for sure.
So you started doing some research and reading and trying to get, regain your health. What did you find? Like what did
Um,
you come across?
yeah, so the first thing was it's more predominantly affecting women,
Mm-hmm.
which I kind of already knew because of my family. None of the men in my family really had the condition, so I was like, okay, that checks out. And then the next thing was more so the dietary changes needed, which we're not really told by our doctors, which again is not their fault. I just don't think they have that knowledge with them to kind
Mm-hmm.
of advise us on everything because they have to look at every condition under the sun. So it is hard for them as well, but I think learning that you can't eat certain food groups that I was eating when I wasn't really supposed to be eating them, so any nitrogens, a lot of like dairy or gluten, which we're affected by quite a bit, but I had to like start cutting things out and seeing what was really affecting me and what wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
so I knew what to kind of change in my lifestyle and see if that was allowing me to reduce my symptoms. So I had to leave the cruciferous vegetables, which are some of my favorite vegetables, but I knew I had to cut them down. And even soy was a big one because I'm a
Mm-hmm.
vegetarian, so trying to get my protein in
Oh, okay. Oh,
was
that's a bit, yes.
predominantly tofu, so now I can't have a lot of that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's more like pea protein and stuff like that, which I can have.
Okay. So sounds like you kind of did your own kind of elimination diet to work out what you noticed. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you try with the cruciferous vegetables, like having them cooked or raw? Like, I know I've read different things about that, about, them being, you know, okay if they're cooked, not eating too much of them raw. Did you kind of get down that rabbit hole?
Yeah, I did. So the first one I tried, I think was kale because it's like an easy one to try raw and also
Mm-hmm.
cooked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think I didn't see too much difference. So I had to add other ones like broccoli, but I think for me, when they're cooked, I feel less bloated
Mm-hmm.
than when
Yeah.
they're not cooked. So when it's raw, I bloat like crazy. So I tried to
Right.
cook them down and steam them till they're really soft
Mm-hmm.
and mushy, and then they were kind of okay. But I don't like risking it too much because I know they have some nitrogen still left in them even when they're cooked down. So I kind of limit myself to them maybe once or twice a week at the most.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think once you get into diet, I mean, yeah, this is probably one of the challenges that I think a lot of people that listen to this show have too, because like I have is what's okay, what's not okay, and there are. I think that the goitrogenic food and the cruciferous vegetables is one of those things that some people have very strong opinions on both ways. So it sounds like exactly what you've done is try to, see how your body responds. Raw, cooked, work out
Yeah.
exactly what you need for your body, and that's obviously different to what I needed for my body. Yeah, we've got those things
Yeah.
to be aware of. Yeah, so you've kind of gone down like that path, and then the no soy, gluten and dairy, is that right? Or they
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Any other sort of dietary kind of choices that you've made to support your thyroid health?
So another one I think was the probiotics and the prebiotics.
Hmm.
Again, before everything, I didn't know that gut health was also a factor in your thyroid health. I thought it was just, oh, let's just swap out a few foods and I'll be okay. But the deeper I dove into my research and learned more in my studies, I was thinking, okay, it's also gut health, which is a big, big factor, with your
Hmm.
microbiome. So I started to incorporate more gut-friendly foods. So
Mm-hmm.
like I have kefir, but I have water kefir because it's dairy free.
Yeah.
So that's really good. And then I have some sort of pickled like vegetables sometimes. My mom helps me make them, and they
Yep.
kind of help as well with my gut health. So it's really nice to
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah.
I think it's really good. And then, yeah, I think that
Do
was
you make
another
your
big
own,
one.
the water kefir? Do you make your own or do you just buy it?
No, I buy it. We have this really good one in a local store,
Hmm.
Sainsbury's, if anyone's watching and wondering. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just like a 250 milliliter bottle, but it kind of tells you the portions you need each day. And it's
Oh,
actually
that's
really
good.
nice and good. Yeah, so we're
Oh,
lucky
what's
to have
that
that.
brand? Tell to share the brand, and then any UK listeners
I think
can.
it's bio something, but I have to double check.
Okay, that's all
It's
right.
like a
That's
blue
okay.
bottle. It's like a
A
blue
blue bottle.
wrapper. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's great because I think sometimes it is about when you find a great brand of something. I think yeah, share it because it can be hard trying to navigate all these
Yeah, for
different
sure.
things. And if you find a great product, yeah, we like water kefir in our household too. Yeah, but it's a
Yeah.
Butchie Kombucha is the brand. They do kombucha, but they also do water kefir, and they're pretty local to me here in Brisbane, but they're a good brand. Yeah.
Well,
So
that's
water kefir is
nice.
some fermented foods
Yeah,
for your gut health. Sorry, yeah. So have you noticed an improvement in your gut health then?
I have for sure. I think the big one was just the bloating and the constipation, which again
Mm-hmm.
are symptoms with that are associated with hypothyroidism. Which again,
Mm.
I thought, okay, that's normal. Everyone gets constipated once in a while, or everyone's always bloated, but everyone's not always bloated.
That's right.
Um,
You don't realize, do you, until
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Kind of have the conversation with people and they're like, that's not normal, Tanisha. So I thought, okay, something else for me to try and learn how to fix and find a solution.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
through doing that, like very consistently, so when I wake up, I'll have my levothyroxine, then I'll obviously wait half an hour, and then the water kef is the first thing that hits my
Okay.
palate.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, let's just line the gut first thing, and then I start making my breakfast and have my
Mm-hmm.
protein intake and do all of that.
Yeah. So what would be a typical, as a vegetarian with those sort of dietary changes that you've made, what would be a typical breakfast that you would have?
So sometimes it would be like eggs or egg whites,
Mm-hmm.
around 3 or 4 of those, and just make an omelette. Or I like to make these egg bites, and I mix low-fat cottage cheese into them,
Mm-hmm.
which is a bit of dairy. But when you're vegetarian, it's hard not to find some dairy sources as protein, so I do have to balance what I eat. And then
Sure.
I'll just add a bunch of vegetables to it. So capsicums, some herbs, onions, all of that. Just mix it up and then bake it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have these little bites that I can eat each day. So
Uh-huh.
that's one
Yep.
of like my favorite things because it's really easy once you've prepped it. It lasts you a few days. It's nice.
Yep.
Another thing I like to make is protein pancakes I've recently learned. So with
Okay.
that,
Oh, how
I
do you make
do,
them?
yeah. So with that, I do have to use a supplement with the powder, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that we can't really eat or consume whey protein a lot because
Mm, yeah.
of the
It's
casein. It's
dairy.
hard to digest. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I switched it to pea protein and flava bean protein.
Oh,
I've
yes. Yep.
heard that mix kind of is a complete protein, which is really helpful as a vegetarian because it's really
Mm,
hard to hit your protein goals. So I
okay.
kind of add that and then I'll add an egg to it and just
Mm-hmm.
mix it and I'll add some agave and just make that as another breakfast.
Mm,
And then sometimes when I'm feeling okay and not knowing that I'm not going to bloat too much, I'll have oats. I know
okay.
a lot of people are on the fence about oats. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's okay. I don't get too affected by them, but I do add like my chia seeds to them to make sure I'm getting like healthy fats as well. It's not just carbs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oats is one of those kind of, as you say, on the fence as to whether they contain gluten or whether they don't. For me, they're a grain anyway, and I try to avoid grains generally, not completely, but generally. So for me, yeah, grains do make me bloat. Even chia seeds make me bloat if I have to.
Really? Oh,
Like I
oh,
couldn't do a chia pudding. You know how some people do the chia. I've done that. Oh, it was terrible. I haven't done it for a long time, but a few little chia seeds here and there, but is probably okay. But
yeah.
um, yeah, so we're all so unique. It's finding those things that work.
Yeah. Have you tried
Yeah.
milled chia seeds, like ground chia seeds?
Oh, not specifically, I don't think.
I think because I use those ones because of like the ones where you usually have to pour the water to make them expand.
Yeah.
Those ones I don't think they work well for me either. They just left me a bit
Oh,
more constipated, so I had to try the milled ones, and they're just so much easier to consume. You just sprinkle them.
okay.
They don't need soaking, and they have
Oh.
the same amount of nutrition. It's great.
Oh, that's a good tip. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Milled. So you actually buy them milled. You don't just sort of pound them in a mortar and pestle or something.
You
You
can
buy
do,
them
but
milled.
we've got
Hmm.
a pack at our superstore, like a Sainsbury's, that we can just buy and take out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, I'll have to check that one out because yeah, sometimes it's a bit like the cruciferous vegetables. It's like they can impact you differently whether they're raw or cooked. Even tomatoes, like I'm not great with cooked tomatoes, but I can eat raw tomatoes with no problem. So
yeah,
they're really cooking and processing and things that we do to our food really can have a reasonably significant impact. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's how I think it's always interesting to find out. Well, what do people, you know, eat? Because we do have to eat, and
yeah,
and I think I'm not a vegetarian, so probably a lot of the food I talk about from time to time, is probably reasonably heavily meat based, for the high protein. So really helpful to hear, yeah, what you're eating as a vegetarian, as managing your thyroid health. So it goes to show we can all make it work. It just takes that bit of effort to figure it
yeah,
out. Yeah.
for sure.
And so is there anything else around food that you've learned that works or doesn't work for you?
Yeah, so usually I also like to have Brazil nuts.
Hmm.
And it's just like a really, I think you probably know about Brazil nuts. Like everyone, once they do their thyroid research, they're like, wow, Brazil nuts. It's obviously really high in selenium. You only need one or two per day and you're good. And it really does benefit the thyroid and conversion of the hormones. So I usually just buy them and then I'll either chop them up and add them to my breakfast if I'm having an oats bowl or like a
Hmm.
yogurt bowl or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'll sprinkle them in and have my fruits with it. Because
Hmm.
I like fruits. They're nice. Uh, but yeah, I kind of like to add Brazil nuts to things just randomly when I remember, okay, I need to have that because
Yeah.
selenium, we need it. I also like to add healthy fats to some of my meals. So
Hmm.
obviously we know avocados, great source of healthy fats and fiber.
Yeah.
So just buy that, chop it in half, put it in, and we're good to go. I make
Yep.
sometimes, guacamole, and I'll
Yep.
just add it to my lunch items and make salads sometimes. It's really nice. I think the food aspect, because I like to cook, it's
Mm.
fun for me to kind of
Yeah.
find different foods that help. Um, so yeah, just finding different ways that we can balance our macros and micros really has helped
Mm.
me understand more as a coach and even as a person with the condition, what I need to be doing. And like even asking mom, like, oh, can we make this instead? And then she kind of learns as well. And it's like a back and forth of that daily.
Yeah, it is, and I guess it adds. I think sometimes you put a bit more effort in. Like if you didn't have to work around these different food challenges, well, you probably wouldn't have to put in quite as much effort. And so I
Yeah,
think sometimes with that, whilst it is effort, and if you like to cook, then you don't want to miss out. So you're making sure that you're getting balanced, the right sort of amounts of fats and proteins and fiber and carbs, but you're doing it in a way that's enjoyable. So
yeah, for sure, for
yeah.
sure.
And if your mum likes, it's nice to kind of get ideas from your mum or different people as to what to cook. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Um, aside from diet, have there been anything else from a lifestyle kind of perspective? Um, I mean, you mentioned before you like to, help people with sleep and stress and exercise. Like, are they things that you've worked on as well?
100%. So when the doctors initially said, just like manage your weight and do more exercise. I thought more exercise meant let's do more cardio, let's do more HIIT workouts, because that's the only way I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to lose weight. And let's do a calorie deficit, which, in hindsight, I didn't know back then that was not the approach to take, but now I know that's definitely not what we need to do. We need to be having enough food to fuel
Mm-hmm.
our body, and also doing more low intensity workouts. So I
Mm.
started walking more, going on walks with my friend. My best friend, she loves to walk, so she kind of says, "Do you want to go for a walk?" And I'm like, "Yes, let's go do it."
Yep.
So going on walks is a really good one, and also
Mm.
Pilates. Um,
Yep.
Doing Pilates is really good, I think, for your core muscles.
Mm-hmm.
And even strength training. That's probably my favorite way to exercise is strength
Okay.
training. Yeah, I love it.
Do you
It's
go to
so
the
much
gym,
fun.
or like do you do that at home, or go to the gym? What do you do?
I used to go to the gym when I had to work in the office, but now my job is working from home, which was another factor I'll get onto.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bought my own weights and resistant bands, and I basically just do that when I have time in the morning before I start my job, or once my
Mm-hmm.
job is done, I'll do that and then I'll focus on my coaching.
Yep.
But yeah, it's really fun to like find different routines and see which one works, and then do that for a few weeks, see what
Mm.
differences it makes, and then try maybe another routine. But yeah, just full body exercises in general are really great, and low impact ones I think is good
Mm.
just to
So
like
are you
obviously.
finding them online, or like you just make them up yourself, or how are you finding those workouts that you're doing?
Sometimes I do just look on YouTube and I do just find low impact ones. I
Mm-hmm.
think it does help with my form because I'm not a personal trainer. That's
Yeah.
not what I've been trained in. It's more nutrition and diet is what I've been trained in.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of does help to see if I'm, standing correctly, if my posture is correct whilst I'm lifting.
Yeah.
I think that's very useful. So I kind of get it online, or I kind of find a guide and see if I'm doing it correctly and if I'm hitting the required number of reps.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been quite fun to do as well. And in my personal life, my brother, he goes to the gym quite a lot. He does all of that. He lifts a lot. And so getting advice from him is also very helpful.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of motivation too if you've got family, that you can ask and talk to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So walking, Pilates, strength training is sort of what you've kind of found the styles of exercise that have been working well for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And you said something before about going from the office to working from home. So has that been part of your healing story as well?
For sure. So, back when I was diagnosed, I didn't know stress also affected the thyroid,
Mm-hmm.
and like our health in general. So when I was getting into working my first 9 to 5, it was before COVID, and that was obviously then brought to a halt, because everyone was sent home. So I was working in a call center job. That was first job out of university because everything was closed and everyone was trying to get jobs. So
Mm-hmm.
that job, it was a bit stressful, I would say, but I think it helped in a way to kind of understand that that was a trigger. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I should not really be this stressed. It's affecting
Right.
my mental
Yeah.
health a lot. So
Yeah.
when I went into my next job, it was an office-based job, and it was great at first, but then it's one of those situations where like management, it was not a very healthy workspace or environment to be in. And it was very high pressure, high stress. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, for my health, I do need to leave.
Yeah.
And so I made the decision to just leave that job and find one that's more home based, and see if that kind of helps me manage my health. If I'm at
Mm-hmm.
home, in my relaxed environment, then I'll be able to kind of have less stress in me. So I
Mm-hmm.
did that, and over the first year that I worked from home, and even working with this company, they're great. Everyone's really nice. It's a healthy work environment. My stress levels dropped, and I started losing weight. My hair wasn't falling out
Wow.
as much. So I was like, okay,
Wow, that's
that's a
really
big one.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So is that how how do you identify for you when you're stressed? Like, is it that you're gaining weight and your hair's falling out, or like, how do you know when you're stressed or when you're not stressed?
I think a lot of it's like when you're in flight or fight. and I get like very shaky, I can identify that that's when I've hit my point of like, okay, I'm very stressed right now and I need to
Yeah.
calm it down. And a lot of that is through breath work, which in
Okay.
like an office, I can't just go sit out and do my breathing exercises. Whereas when I'm working from home, I can just
Mhm.
like go out and do that for 5 minutes and then come back to my desk space and then carry on with my
Mhm.
job.
Yeah.
So I genuinely did not know how to manage stress until I started working from home.
Mm. Yeah. So just being in a was it just a quieter environment? Just being in a just in your own space that sort of feels comfortable for you as a
Yeah,
workspace,
I
and
think for
giving you
me that
that
works.
flexibility to go
Yeah,
and take those little mini breaks where you need to. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's really healthy. So you've sounds like you've also built some boundaries in for yourself as well,
yeah. And I think
and
it's
learnt
also
some.
nice. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I was going to say, and you've and learnt some specific skills like the breathwork skills, or is there anything else that you do that you find really helps you with your stress management?
Um, Sometimes for me, just taking a nap here or there. I know it's
Mhm.
like sounds a bit out, but it does help sometimes when you just need to reset. I'll
Mhm.
just try getting myself to bed to kind of calm down if I'm
Mhm.
really in a panicky mood. And other times even just talking about it with people. So I've
Mm.
got really amazing friends and amazing family that are always open to having a conversation about what's going on and how they
Mhm.
can help and what they've done to kind of stop their stress from getting too much. And a
Yeah.
lot of them do just say it's breath work or do yoga, which we all know it's a big part of it. But I think just talking about it is very good, like to someone, because you
Yeah.
can't always just keep it in your head. Letting it out in
Yes.
some way is really helpful.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, sometimes just the process of talking about whatever you're stressed about helps relieve the stress, which I think is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that too. And I've gone back this year to working in the field of family law mediation, which is what I have done that in the past, and it is quite stressful. You're dealing with people who are very stressed, going through a often quite traumatic, and even if traumatic, very difficult, stressful kind of seasons, and it is stressful. So yeah, I've found just being actually for me in that space, being in the workplace has been less stressful than being well, I haven't done much of that work from home because I think there I've got the colleagues I can debrief with. And, if I've got a tricky case, I can talk to, my manager or supervisor or, other colleagues about it. And that for me helps to reduce some of that stress. So yeah, it's certainly different stress to when I was, when the last few years where I've been working on, all this thyroid health stuff and, working with people and developing programs, and that's a different stress. And so I'm still learning really, okay, now I'm back in this more stressful environment. How do I really have to be more proactive about managing my stress. Um, at the moment, like I'm working 3 days a week there. I think if I was doing full time, that would be much harder. Like I do find having these kind of 2 days a week where I can do this and talk, this there, like talk about what I'm passionate about, talk to people like you, get my life sorted out as
Yeah.
well those other couple of days. And maybe like last week I went to the beach with my husband. That was nice, so building in some of those different ways of, again, yeah, trying to manage the stress, but dealing with the stress in the moment, I'm still working on that. I need to probably go and do what you're doing, even like just take a step out of the office for 5 minutes
Yeah.
and do a bit of breath work, because I've noticed I've been spent the last 2 weeks with a continuous glucose monitor managing my blood sugar, or just observing my blood sugar really. And what I've really noticed is the days I'm at work, it's much higher than the days I'm not. So and that's the stress, because I'm really I've pared back completely, like I'm almost eating no carbs. Like I just want to really see what so I don't think it's the food, it's the stress. And so it makes
Yeah.
you realize when you can see it on this little graph, and I'm like, and it starts when I get to work, and then it's, it doesn't sort of settle till I go to bed. I was like, wow, okay, I have to work out how to, reduce this stress.
Manage,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So it's been, good reminder from you.
Yeah.
Take that
I
couple
think
of minutes out.
also like sleep is another one that affects stress. Before
Mm,
when I was at university, I barely slept. I thought, oh, I need to stay up, get my grades, get my first class, and I'll be okay. Um,
mm-hmm.
Obviously not. It really affected my health. So,
Yeah.
like you said, getting those 2 days that you have is really helpful. I think even just catching up on a bit more sleep or trying to make sure your circadian rhythm is set it's really good to have.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, that's right. I think, we do sort of, um, we know sleep's important, but somehow that's often the thing that gets sacrificed, isn't it? Or we sort of don't realize it's as important as it actually is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and I think, like, as you say, when you're at university, you think you can live on no sleep, and it catches up with you. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Tanisha, now, you're starting to, build a coaching, health coaching practice so that you can help other people going through this. What made you, what made you want to become a health coach?
Honestly, I think just relating to people, even just relating to my cousins, a lot of the time back before I learned what I learned, they didn't even know a lot of the information that was out there that was affecting them. So they were also
Mm-hmm.
going through the same symptoms and then just having to take the levothyroxine and see if they're okay or not.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of went through similar things that I did. So I thought, okay, let me kind of see if I can help myself and then see if I can give them some advice as well. And through that, I just thought, okay, I kind of really like doing this and I really enjoy it. I want to help more people. Let's see if
Hmm.
I can do that. And that was my next step.
Yep.
So yeah, I kind of did that. And then it was also knowing that when you have a condition like ours, we kind of mourn our lives that we could have had in a way.
Hmm.
It's like seeing all your friends and seeing that they're feeling normal and feeling okay and they're progressing at a quicker rate whilst you're just kind of stuck in some ways.
Hmm.
With your symptoms, like trying to figure it out on a daily basis, it is quite hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the relatability is the big one for me. Just relating to people with the condition and letting them know
Yeah.
that they can thrive. It's going to be okay. There are ways we
Yeah.
can manage it. Is we just got to stick together and figure it out and get through it.
Yeah. 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 As you say, doing it in a bit of community or just knowing that you're not alone. Yeah. And and I think, when when you diagnose young, like you were, like I was too, but I'm a little bit older now. But you do think you're right. I think you do go through a mourning process, and um, you're realizing that this is something you've got to live with for the rest of your life. It's not something that is a quick fix, and it's not just I've dealt with this for a couple of years and then I can get on with the rest of my life and forget all about it. It is something that needs that lifelong attention, and that there is a grieving that goes along with that. So I'm sure you seem like you've got a very kind and gentle personality. So I think you'd be really easy to talk to, for someone who is maybe feeling a bit lost or alone or hurting or wanting to um, journey with someone. You feel you seem like a really kind person to get alongside.
Oh, thank you. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's like my big reason for doing it. And it's just like a really good thing that I'm passionate about, I think. You kind of have to love the process as well,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to kind of spread that message and awareness and do what we do.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good time that we're in because there is not a lot out there, but there is enough for us to kind of allow people to come in and kind of work with coaches and see
Mm.
if they can make those changes in their lifestyle and not have to go through the 5 to 10 years that everyone else goes through initially when they're diagnosed of confusion and all the symptoms just blowing up in their face.
Yeah.
I think it's nice. It's a good time that we're in right now.
Yeah, you're right, and it is easier to get that message out and connect with a number of different people. Yeah. So if you were to go back and think about, yourself 8 or 9 years ago, around that time you were being diagnosed, and what would you say to your younger self? Like anything you do differently, or any words of encouragement? What would you say?
I would tell myself to be a bit more patient, um, and
Mm.
kind of try managing my emotional state a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was diagnosed initially, there was a lot of anger with it because I didn't know what to do, and I thought
Mm.
the doctors aren't helping me and it's just hopeless. So kind of trying to get myself out of that mindset and into a more positive one is what I would tell myself if I were
Mm-hmm.
to go back, and just trying to calm myself down, say, okay, it's fine, we're gonna get through it. Just a more positive mind space, really. I don't think I had that until I started learning about it all. I was
Mm.
pretty mentally not okay, but I think learning about it really did help me kind of get that hope back and figure it out by myself and not get as overwhelmed or angry. So I think doing that would have really helped initially, but you can't go back to the past. I think you can just advise now people that are going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would tell myself to kind of just stay calm as you
Mm-hmm.
can, and just try having a positive outlook on it.
Yeah. 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 That's really good advice. It's hard to do in the moment, but it's sort of having that long-term view, as well as like, we are going to get there. Like the way you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get there. Come on, we can do it. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And Tanisha, is there anything I haven't asked you that you think that, the audience would like to know? I'm going to ask you in a second to share, how people can connect with you. But is there anything else, any other words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience today?
I think words of wisdom wise, just keep doing what you're doing. Follow as many people as you can, because there's so many great advocates, even on Instagram, any social that you go on. Maybe join Facebook groups. There's so many people that are going through the same thing, and you can help them, give advice to them through there as well.
Hmm.
I would say just keep going. Basically, don't give up. It's not over. Like you can still thrive with this condition, and you will. So I think that's my main point.
Yeah, that's great. That's excellent. And so, Tanisha, how can people connect with you, and how are you working with people in your coaching business?
Yeah. So people can connect with me through Instagram. My account is at tanisha.healthcoach. Just give a follow, and I like to give tips, as many tips as I can, and share my knowledge as well. And
Hmm.
people can also find me through my website. So it's optithy.com, and work with me one to one. Right now, I do one to one coaching,
Hmm.
and it's a 3 month program. But if
Okay.
obviously clients do want longer, they can. It's up to them, really. I'm here to help as much as I can, give advice as much as I can as well.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I'll make sure I put all those links as well. So, go give Tanisha a follow. And if you want to look at working with her, then check out optithy.com. That would be good. Well, look, thank you so much, Tanisha, for sharing your story and what's been working for you in your journey so far. I've really enjoyed having this conversation with you. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Let's Talk Thyroid. If you have enjoyed the content, or perhaps you're thinking, oh, my mum needs to hear this, or my sister, or my bestie, I would love it if you would share this episode with them. That really just helps spread the positive and practical message of Let's Talk Thyroid, and helps that broader thyroid community, our friends and family, to live well with their thyroid health. So you can just, share the episode. If you subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast, it's free. It's really helpful because then you'll be notified every time a new podcast comes out, and it just makes it much easier to find. There's usually a little subscribe button or a bell, or follow often is the terminology. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be helpful. Of course, if you want to leave a review, even better, just a sentence or two about how the podcast has helped you. you can definitely connect with me via letstalkthyroid.com. That's where you'll find access to my book, my coaching, my freebies, and really everything that I offer in terms of thyroid support.